Welcome everyone to the Monday Night Live Q&A. Dr. Rob is joining tonight as
I'm in the
usual. So
house.
yeah,
We're both
I
in
was
the
going to say we're
house.
in the house. We're in the house. I'm just not in my house, but it's all good. So, yeah. Dr. Rob, the first question we have is, in last week's Q&A, Dr. Rob posed the question, how can you begin to find peace in your relationship if you feel that way about yourself? I myself have continued to destroy my family with decades of deceit and unfaithfulness to my wife. The place where I can't find peace is with the intrusive thoughts that I have, which are sexual towards everyone around me, including thoughts of doing things to them that I have never or would never do. I have kept the thoughts secret from everyone and have chosen to mitigate the anxiety from my internal conflicts by seeking online content that aligns with what I should desire and making sure that it is desirable for me. Or the opposite, finding what my mind told me was desirable and making sure that it wasn't desirable for me. I hear a lot of conflict with that. I would do all this testing by myself in a controlled environment where I wouldn't be judged. I would also try to mitigate the anxiety by flirting with those that I should desire, usually based on who I was told by others were desirable. So I guess this continues to make sure that they were desirable for me as well. My infidelity included trips to strip clubs, which included getting a private dance and pursuing a close and personal relationship with a female coworker. All of these mitigations provided only temporary relief from my feelings of anxiety, but the intrusive thoughts have come back. My question is similar to what Dr. Weiss proposed. How can I begin to find peace in my relationship if I'm constantly at odds with intrusive thoughts that I've had my entire life and have kept from everyone during that span?
Well, I think if you don't mind, Tammy, I'd like to get started on this one.
Yes, please.
So Tammy and I said, and I really want you to hear this, we don't know you. We don't know who you're with or the meaning of what you're saying. We can only respond to what's in front of us. So this is when I feel like I have to put on my mental health hat rather than my addiction help. Um, it's one thing to have desires for something. It's one thing as an addict, I got to tell you, someone walks down the street and I think, oh, that would be nice. Or, I have a thought in my head, ooh, I wish I could do that, but I choose as an addict not to and to do other things. But they're not consistent intrusive thoughts, and I'm not fighting them every minute of the day. And what I hear, and I could be wrong, is some kind of anxiety disorder or an obsessive compulsive disorder. It isn't that I don't fight my thoughts. I learn how to accept them, manage them, and make other decisions. What I hear you saying is it's a constant struggle and battle within yourself to think the right way, to not think the right way, to make. I, I, um, I don't think that's just addiction, from what I hear. And I want to be really respectful. I don't know your situation. I don't, you could be on medication, see doctors, I don't know. But Tammy and I read a lot of these, and I'll ask Tammy her opinion for sure. But this, when I hear about this level of struggle, the pain with the desire to make it right, the constant rumination is a word I would use. Something isn't right, and it's not just addiction. Something. There's an issue with your brain, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Some people have depression, some people have anxiety. We all have stuff. Addicts have issues, but the way I read this, and but honest, I could tell you all kinds of stuff about it, recovery and therapy and all that stuff and relationships. But there's a piece in here that founds that a therapist who does addiction work or going to meetings and all that is not going to fully resolve. And I strongly suggest that you go see a psychiatrist. By the way, I want to say to everyone, it doesn't mean when you go to see a psychiatrist, doesn't mean you have to take what they tell you to take. Many people say, I don't want to go to, you don't have to take a bunch of pills, but listen to what they have to say. You have nothing to lose except maybe money or insurance visit to get the information. What you do with it is up to you. But I think to toss away someone saying, I really think you should get evaluated is to maybe miss a piece that's important. So that's my feedback.
And I want to ask because I do hear, like, I've cheated and there is sexual
Oh, I'm not
content.
saying they're not a sex
No,
addict.
no, no.
Right.
No. This is what I'm asking for a definition of what kind of professional. So we often talk about like an ASAM, American Society of Addiction Medicine, who understands addiction as well as those other aspects. What are your thoughts on that? Or would any psychiatrist help? I don't know.
Well, I think for me in this situation, I think the most important thing is to get evaluated. It really isn't the content
Mm,
of your rumination. You could be ruminating about, your child. You could, I mean, over and over and over and over and over again. But we don't even know if this is addiction because people act out, people go to strip clubs,
mm.
people have affairs, they do all kinds of things frequently, and they're not addicts. And then, but the people, so I don't know whether that's true or not, but I can tell you if you were seeing me, and this is a thing with working with people who have really obsessive thoughts. If I say everything's fine, you'll say, well, wait a minute, I'm not sure it's fine. And then if I say it's not fine, you'll say, well, wait a minute, I think it is, because this obsessive nature going back and forth makes it really hard to pick any path and really stick to it and feel okay with it. So to me, taking the sex piece aside, or just saying I've cheated or whatever is enough. I think what you need to focus on is the crazy thinking, the thinking that makes you crazy. And then you could look back and say, gee, I wonder if this is addiction or not. But at this point, I think there's more of a mental health issue that needs to be addressed by a qualified psychiatrist. Whether or not they're in addiction field, it's helpful, but I'm not sure it's essential. Because they'll hear,
That's what it's
I think it's
asking. Yeah.
addiction, but they'll also hear the way you think and how you think, and they're trained to look beyond what you think it is. I go online to Google. I go on Chat GPT lately, Tammy, and I got to tell you, every disorder I have is right there. It's all the symptoms and what I should do about it. I think, and then I read it somewhere else, and it's different. So, Googling or AIing your information is not going to answer the question. You need to see a qualified professional. So, good question, Tammy.
Yeah, and my thought is, I'm so glad you're here because holding these secrets, like that to me feels like the added torture of this is like, I can't tell anyone, and because you said I've kept it from everyone, and I'm thinking that this is how we start to, break through all of that, the shame or whatever else it is. Whoa, you were flipping around.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So is by stating, and anonymous attendee, we don't know who you are, but we're really glad you're here, and we have lots of resources for you to continue to lean into. So okay, the next one is, can you please talk about the benefits of 12 step? Yes, I can. We can. And for addicts and non-addicts, the process and how to get started. So, I'm going to put in the chat. I pulled this because I saw we did a webinar. Our colleague Scott and I did a webinar specifically on 12 step, um and how to navigate them. There's myths, and there's there's all kinds of misinformation about 12 step, and we were very specific within the S world. Like, if you drink, you go to AA. It's kind of easy. Within the S, I'm on the board of directors for SCA, Sexual Compulsive Anonymous, but there's a whole bunch of them, and we have listed on our website. I'll pull that next, but we have a list of the 12 step programs. For non-addicts, Scott and Kristen Snowden co-authored a book, Life Anonymous. Kristen is not an addict, and she did a whole video series on our website in 2023, I think. Might be 2022. I lost track of time. I will look for that as well, and you can find that. But she goes through that book. But it's just good living, and I often share for partners. This is helpful too because then you've got the language of what 12 step is, and you can use the tools. It's always take what you need and leave the rest. Kristen did a podcast with Dr. Rob on sex, love, and addiction on this specific topic. The book is listed on our book list. Just really good information, but I just put the link for that specific webinar about navigating the 12 steps. We unpacked a whole bunch of information about that. So, Dr. Rob?
And all the things Tammy's talking about, those you're maybe listening are on seekingintegrity.com. I know you're not here to necessarily see the
Yes,
things she's
good
typing in.
point.
Thank you for doing it, Tammy. But all of it's on there. So I really appreciate your question. I was thinking for myself what it means. And I think I'm going to give you a few things. Number one, and I'll use myself. I didn't really have the best lessons about how to live life growing up. What I learned to do is survive. I learned to survive some very difficult circumstances, and I did a great job of surviving. But some of the skills that I learned and the ways I learned to manage and get around what happened to me aren't necessarily ones that are useful for me in my adult life today. And however, they're ingrained and they're what I learned. So to me, one of the things that a 12-step program does is consistently remind me and direct me as to a healthy way of living. I'm used to lying. I'm used to hiding. I'm used to ignoring my own problems. I'm used to hurting people and not paying attention and just moving on. I think, if you take all the spirituality out of it, there's two pieces. One, to me, is it's a guide for living. And I don't have to, it's not I'm not reading particularly religious set, this is what God says, or I'm simply going by a well-known successful process of learning how to live differently than the way I have. It's a class in life, if you will. And the reason we keep going and over again is because I will revert to the things I learned when I was 4, 5, 6, and 7, when I was much, much younger. And so to not revert there is to continue doing the work and being reminded of the step path I need to follow. I think the other thing, and Tammy, I'm sure, has many more reasons for herself, is the social aspect. I avoid, I'd rather sit home alone. I'd rather go act out. I'd rather do a lot of things. The last thing I want to do is sit around with a bunch of people I don't know and build relationships. But that's exactly what I need to do, because we can't do this alone. If we could fix it on our own, you can build businesses, you can be as successful, you can do all kinds of things with your brain, with your experience, with your strengths. But this recovery and healing stuff is not something that you can do by yourself, no matter how hard you try. And so to me, to be in a room full of people who share my problem and who I can become friends with and work with and support, to me, that's an incredible gift. We use the word cohort. And that means in the therapeutic world, being with people who are like you, not like you in race or color or spiritual beliefs, but who are similar to you in the problems that challenge you. And I know when I walk into a 12-step room, it doesn't matter what your job is, it doesn't matter where you are in life. What matters to me and what we share is the problem and our desire to heal the problem. So, and I'll just say something about cohort or social. I'm not necessarily going to chat with people in life about my sexual problems. Lots of people go to therapists and they feel really uncomfortable talking about it. When hear a whole room of people talking about such personal issues, you can't help but reflect on yourself and begin to talk about it, or at least listen. So I want to answer and for the partners, Tammy, you could speak to the partners part, I think. Not, you couldn't speak the addict part, but I think I spilled that out pretty good. But I do want to say something about how to get started. Go. You don't need anything. You can go online, Sex Addicts Anonymous, Sexual Compulsives Anonymous, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, I mean, you name it, and you have to try some out and say, oh, this fits for me, or this doesn't. But just go. You can go right into those sites. They give a million meetings, and thank goodness you don't have to go on a rainy night like this to a church basement where everybody's soaking wet and cold, which Tam and I know we did for many, many years now, and still do sometimes. But now you can go online and find a meeting. And by the way, you can do this. I don't know where it is, but you can do this, turn off. Well, actually, this is easier, right? There we go. No one has to know who you are. You can go anonymously and just listen and get a sense of what people are going to and slowly stick around and find your way. The last thing I'll say is that going once or twice is not it. You have to go 6, 8 times. You may have to go to different ones. I know when I go to a meeting in the beginning, I think, oh, I'm not like these people. They're much more trouble than I am, because I pick for the worst person and I say, well, I'm not like that person. But the truth is, you have to go often enough and listen to the words enough and experience enough to say, this is comfortable for me, or I can learn from this, rather than rejecting it outright. So um, I could think of more, Tammy, but that's enough from me.
Oh, so I'm traveling and I met with a friend who's also in the program. And guess what we did last night? We went out to dinner and went to a meeting, and I'd never been there. And it's just like, I love it because like Dr. Rob said, I can relate. There's something everyone says. There were people that had days of recovery, like less than a week. And then there's people, that have years and decades, and we're all on this journey. And for those of us that are working on our programs, we're nodding our heads. We can relate to the person who is just going, I don't even know what to do,
Mhm.
but it's this journey. It's just so amazing, and that like that. I don't do it because, do I think I'm going to go act out? Probably not. But gosh, it feeds my
You don't
soul.
know.
It is so good. I know it's my little insurance policy, but it just helps. It helps so much. And to me, it's like, I didn't want to go. They said, you have to go until how long do I have to go to these? Until you want to go. And it really is. It shifted, and and the very thing that Dr. Rob talked about of like, not wanting to be around people, not wanting to talk about it. This is the safe place where you can talk. Like, we're laughing about things that other people would just think we're nuts for, but that reduces the shame, and we're all nodding our heads, So it's just
Mhm.
changes, it shifts how you view yourself and others. So, and partners, yeah, deserve empathy. And guess where we can learn it? We can learn it sitting in a meeting going like, I get that, and it's safer, so we start there, we learn and we take little baby steps, and then we can learn to practice it in all areas of our life. That's what recovery is about.
I also want to add that I think the partners piece, it's very similar in a sense. I'm not going to talk to friends about the fact that my spouse did all of this or all of that, but I can go in that room and I realize it's a safe place to talk about it. I can actually, and I can observe this person's in fury and really struggle in the beginning. And there's someone who's come to peace with their relationship. So it gives me hope. It gives me a place to talk about such humiliating, embarrassing things. And I also think it can take some of the burden off of you that it's my fault because none of this is your fault. It's the choice of the addict to do this, but it sure affects you. And that effect of trauma and grief is something that those women or men in those partners' rooms understand, and they'll embrace you for it. So
And well, you said
go
choice,
ahead.
and no, but
No,
like now
go
I would
ahead.
have a choice. Now I would have a choice. But before I got help, I didn't have a choice. I kept doing the same insane things over and over and over again, and I could not stop. I desperately wanted to stop. I did not know how. So while it was a choice, I suppose on some level, like I sure didn't feel like I had
Oh,
any choice. And then, like, absolutely, now if I went, it would absolutely be a choice, because now I have the tools to do things differently. I have the opportunity to connect. So now it
right.
would absolutely be a choice. So that was my only point of clarification. So, but yes, painful for partners, for sure. Okay, betrayer here. Doing my best at real recovery. Wife has told me I'm a narcissist, but I feel genuine remorse and try to own all my mistakes and bad choices. There are too many of those, and I know my acts have been selfish. Every conflict leads to me being relabeled a narcissist. I feel completely boxed in by this, and that shuts down any conversation. How can I better navigate these moments and help her feel safer?
Well, I would start with you're right. I am a narcissist. Every addict by nature is self-focused, self-obsessed, wants to be right all the time, is arrogant, thinks they know better. And those aren't character. I was just talking to someone, Tammy, who said it was a partner, and the way they wanted to look at the addict, the loved one, was who they are at the best of them is over here and the addict is over there. And they just need to fix the addict part and get rid of it or manage
Mm,
it. And then it'll be okay. And what I want them to understand is you're all one person. You're the addict and the healthy person. You are the person who doesn't care about people, and you're the person who absolutely does. There is no separate addict. And so if you're capable of taking a step like, I don't care about you at all, I'm going to do what I want, that's inside of you. And I know for me, I miss cues. I can think to myself, what do you mean I'm a narcissist? I didn't act this way. Or why do you feel? Um, I think what's important is you stop fighting and you stop disagreeing and you acknowledge that as an addict, there's certainly a big part of me that's narcissistic. What I worry about is people who decide it's a diagnosis, they go on AI or whatever, and they see this and this, and they say, okay, I have a narcissistic personality disorder. By the way, remorse is important for an addict, but it doesn't. There's my dog. What what defines someone who's not narcissistic is empathy. It's remorse. Yeah, I feel bad about it. I wish I hadn't done it. I can see how I hurt you, and I feel terrible about it. That's remorse. Empathy is I can't imagine how it makes you feel and the hurt you must feel. And that is a part of moving, of living outside of your narcissism, is to constantly think, and here's a good example. I wonder why my partner would say I'm a narcissist. I wonder, rather than defending, saying, tell me more about that. Or what do you think I'm that way all the time? Or stuff like that. Um, but sure, we have those traits, and they're certainly in every addict I ever know. We can act. And by the way, back to the 12 steps. I will always be narcissistic, but one of the things they teach in 12 steps is to do service, to help other people, to find a way out of my problem. It is anti-narcissism to go there. And so, do we have it? Yes. Will it always be with us? Yes. Will we learn ways to deal with it, manage it, and better understand it? Yes. And you can make choices about how you want to live and how you want to treat people, as Tammy said, once you know what they are. And I'll say this to that point. I wrote a book called Out of the Doghouse. a cheating man's guide to healing his
A
relationship.
relationship saving guide for men
Right.
who've been caught
I
cheating.
wanted to rewrite that subtitle.
I
Right. A
know.
relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. And I wrote it because not that you don't have remorse, but for the lack of empathy and understanding as to why and how your spouse feels the way they do and how you can help them understand that you understand. We also teach a course called Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating.
Caught cheating.
Thank you. And I got to tell you, when you come at me with your anger, your disappointment, or your hurt, I want to lie. I want to look away. I want to, all those things are inside of me, helping me understand when I'm dishonest with you, what the effect is on you. When I've been hiding these things, how long I've been hurting you, what it means to you. My understanding what you are going through is more important than whether I'm a narcissist or not. I will say if your partner's throwing at you, they're probably something you're not listening to. And it starts with, I guess I am. Tell me more about that rather than no, I'm not. Leave me alone. So, Tammy, do you have thoughts about that?
Like Dr. Eddie's webinars, which I put the previously recorded webinars link. He talks often about slow everything down because that reaction of like, no, I'm not, defensive or, going to the shame or whatever. And yes, every addict, alcoholic, whatever has narcissistic traits, we couldn't possibly do our acting out behaviors if we were thinking about other people. So we're not. And we learn to do things differently. Absolutely. I've shared before with,
Oh, hold on, Tammy. You're kind of going. I
no,
don't
I'm
know if you
not.
can hear me. That. Oh, well, you can't hear yourself. I'm just thinking. No, I'm not. I didn't say you were doing it. I said it's coming across that way. A
I
little
will
garbled.
slow everything down. So
No, it's
yeah.
the Zoom link. That's what I'm talking
Oh,
about. Oh,
and it may be the
okay.
internet
Now
here.
it's
I don't
gone.
know. So, okay.
Okay.
Well,
Sorry.
okay. That's okay. So I have shared with addict partners in the past that perhaps sharing, I can understand how my past behaviors would make you, would absolutely make you think that that is the proper label. I'm working really hard. Don't even say that. I'm working towards not being like that. It's going to be a journey. Don't say really hard because then, yeah, take that out. Edit. Um, but I'm working towards being a different person. I am working on those skills that will help me show you empathy and not being self centered. And repeat it 6 times if you need to. If you can stay emotionally grounded and not let things escalate, I'm pretty confident that the scenario is, you're doing or saying or not doing or saying, and then this happens, and then, things kind of mushroom from there. So slow everything down. I love what Dr. Rob said about, I wonder what, I wonder why you're saying that at this moment. Is there
Be
something that I have
curious.
done? Yes, I love being curious. I'm curious. Is there something that has triggered this for you in this moment? I'm wondering if we can, talk about that so I can learn from it. Uh, Be curious, be open to feedback rather than defensive and going, well, you don't know, what is the goal? I say this all the time. What is the goal? If the goal is to improve your relationship, then how can we stop doing the same thing over and over again? It wears you out and it doesn't get you anywhere. So but check out some of those previous Dr. Eddie's, getting to the other side webinars, particularly talk about, how to navigate that space as well. So, and John Taylor, I mean, he's great at relationship maturity. So,
I think when you hear the word narcissist, which is you're a narcissist, what I would think to myself is, I've disappointed her. I've let her down. She only has one name for what she's feeling, but obviously, it's just she's a narcissist all day long. Something happened in that moment, or twice a day, to leave her saying that. What made her say that? What did we just go through? Why am I not listening? Curious, but not reacting to the word. But if you replace the word with, I must have upset her, I must have let her down, that's why she's saying these things. Then I want to understand, how did I let you down and how? So take an emphasis off the word and look at the bigger thing that you're dealing with.
great, great suggestions. Okay.
No,
My
yours were
P
great.
we're like Chip and Dale. My PASA spouse started a new position at his job. He had to do 3 days of training. He never told me it was a female. He also now has her name and number in his contacts. I continue to catch him in lies 8 years after D-Day. Every time I confront him, he calls me controlling, dramatic, stop attacking him. He tells me to leave him alone, that he just wants peace. Your thoughts?
Well, Tammy, I don't always use the nicest words, and you're very much more respectful of the language than I am. But if when it says every time I confront him, he calls me controlling, dramatic, and stop attacking him, I would say, and every time you do that, you're an asshole. In other words, um, what difference does it make how you're acting? It's so easy to point the finger at you. You're always angry, you're always disappointing, you're always, how about I'm dealing with the fact that you are creating a circumstance where I don't feel safe? How about you are creating a set of circumstances where you're lying to me, you're keeping secrets, you've done this for 8 years. Why would you want to say to addicts, you'll fight for your belief? And you may really believe, and it may be absolutely true. I'm not interested in that person. I'll never talk to them. I'll never flirt with them. It's purely business, and it might be absolutely true. Is that important? Yes. You know what's more important? That your partner doesn't feel comfortable about it. And that you respect that whatever's going on or whatever your experience is, that it makes them uncomfortable and that you have to deal with their discomfort rather than saying, oh, and by the way, point at the other thing. Oh, you're always this and you're always that. Boy, does that gaslight and set your partner back. They're just going to feel you might leave them believing that. And what a horrible thing to say to somebody when they're just trying to love you and they're afraid is let's talk about what everything is wrong with you to push them away. So what I hear is someone who doesn't want to hear it, doesn't want to deal with it, doesn't have respect for your feelings or what's going through, and is gaslighting you by saying you're the problem and let me show you how. So he tells me to leave him alone, that he just wants peace. Tammy?
I just put the Healthy Boundaries work group started last week, Tuesday. There is still a few spots, and you could join having missed a week. That happens often, so that would not be an issue. This I mean, I don't know if he's acting out. He's certainly not on any kind of sobriety or recovery journey from what you're sharing, because I don't hear any empathy. I don't hear any caring. I don't hear any accountability. It's that pushing you away. So what do you need to do to take care of you, regardless of what he's doing? There, there's lots of partners who live with someone, who never really gets it. And as long as you are not using all of your focus on what he's doing and not doing, and you can take care of yourself and feel safe, financially, physically, emotionally, spiritually, great. But this kind of dance, like him not being safe, not working on building trust, and pushing you away. I mean, that's really telling. I put in our chat the should I stay or should I go? Zero judgment, not telling you what to
Is that
do.
a book or what
No,
is
no, no,
that?
hang on. It's a series of 4 webinars. Kristen Snowden did the
Ah,
first one. I wrote a blog because I kept sending the links, and I was like, I'm going to write a blog and include all of it. So it's should I stay or should I go? The first one was Kristen Snowden had Gottman's, like, 10 questions out of Dr. John Gottman's work, and it was like, do I even like this person? I don't remember all the rest of them. Consider watching that, journal about the questions, see where you're at. Here's what I really would suggest. This guy called Dr. Rob Weiss does expert consultations with couples. He's really good at identifying the issues and guiding next steps and confronting that BS. I mean, like that's so painful and dismissive, and, like, uh, Dr. Rob did a podcast with Dr. Stan Tatkin in January 2019 on sex, love, and addiction. And it talks about we do in a healthy relationship, the two of you against the world. You're healthier, happier, stronger. Like physically, I mean, medically, you're better off. In an unhealthy relationship, the contrary is true. So I think, what is the goal? And if the goal is that you want to be in a healthy relationship, you're doing the work and he's not. And so at some point, how do you take care of yourself regardless of what he does or doesn't do. One more resource, and then I promise I'll stop. In June of 2023, Debbie Allen did a webinar on our site about a three-circle plan for partners. And I really like that because it mirrors, what the addict partner ideally is doing. But in the inner circle, sometimes, she suggested that perhaps focusing on what the addict is doing, can steal the joy and be dysregulating for partners. So how do you understand that this guy's doing this? He's going to do what he's going to do. And I'm going to take care of myself, at all costs, because like that's the one person you do have any kind of control over. He calls you controlling. You are the only person you have control over. He's clearly, going to continue on this. All addicts, I often say, and I really promise this will be the end, no
No,
addict
I'm going to jump
changes
in anyway. So,
until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. And right now he's doing what he wants to do. And I'm really sorry, that you're in this position, but I'm telling you there's lifelines for you. So okay, I promise. Done.
you know that saying, Tammy, about I walk down the street, I fall in a hole. I learn, I walk down the street again. I really, this is I'm just throwing something at Tammy that makes me think of. But yeah, what I see is every time I confront him, he calls me these things. Well, stop confronting him. Maybe that isn't effective. And this, by the way, is part of going to the partners program, is learning that I have no power over this other person. I can nag, I complain, I confront, but they're still going to do what they want to do. If I'm trying to think of a metaphor of this, but it could be different. Every time I tell him to go to the doctor because he hasn't been for a year, he gets angry at me, or stop asking. He's going to have the consequences of not going to the doctor. As much you can do. By the way, so you have all the answers here, by the way. Every time I confront him, he says these horrible things. Stop confronting him. And then you said, he tells me to leave him alone. He just wants peace. Leave him alone. Leave him. He's telling you what he wants. Leave him alone. But that means you don't spend time watching movies with him. That means whatever, you may not sleep in the same bed. When he says, leave him alone, listen. When he says, every time you confront me, or you say, this happens, stop confronting him. So these are not easy things, but if you want change, then you're going to have to change. And if you don't want to become someone you don't want to be, nagging, complaining, worried about what they're doing, then stop focusing on them, as hard as it is, and find your peace within yourself, because this person's not a nice person right now. And I don't like to hang out with people who don't take responsibility for their own actions. Okay. I think we did that.
I think, yes. Okay. My husband attended the Seeking Integrity 28-day residential program earlier this year. He is retired and has a habit of scrolling YouTube and watching hours of non-recovery videos when he's bored. He realizes this leads him to relapse and put it in his red circle while in treatment. The circle plan was approved by the treatment team, his local therapist, and sponsored before he left treatment. Mm, okay, I think it must go
Is
on.
there a
This is a
question?
constant.
What?
Well, I think
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
next one goes with it. This
Go
is a
ahead.
constant source of threat to me as he acted out with non-porn YouTube and videos on social media that the filter doesn't catch. Now he regrets putting that in his red circle because he constantly violating it and has to reset his sobriety date. He said he was people pleasing when he put it in his red circle and wants to move it to his yellow circle. I think it doesn't matter what circle, it's dangerous territory, a deeper issue, and should be eradicated because it leads to relapse. Thoughts?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And I am absolutely certain. Trust me, I've done enough confronting, and I've had enough guys say, "Oh, it was just Instagram." Oh, I believe me. I know what kind of BS that is. Trust me. So I guarantee you, there was a boundary put around it with him for a reason, and I'm sure it was very clear to him. So what he's saying to you, I'm uncomfortable with this, so I just don't want to do it anymore. As opposed to, I'm uncomfortable with and that's because I know I shouldn't be doing. So basically, he's giving you reasons why he should be able to do it or continue doing it, but not call it a bad thing. Um, so I have metaphors for that, but I'll leave it alone. Um, he is making a choice, and the choice is forget what he's doing. It doesn't feel comfortable to you. And it's like you've told him to stop eating, or stop. You've said, please stop doing things that make me uncomfortable. You've already told me that isn't good for you. Why isn't he listening? Why is this is narcissistic? What I want is not what you want, so I'm going to do what I want. It doesn't matter what they told me. I'm going to do what I want. And then I'm going to, what does it say? He knows it leads him to relapse. Well, then why the hell is he doing it? So what I am concerned about is you. I'm concerned about that you're living and involved with someone, even though they've been offered, I think, some of the best help available. I know because I oversee it and created it, and I have an amazing team that runs it. Um, I can tell you that he's been given the advice and direction that he needs, and he's not following it. And by the way, to anyone who's been to treatment, and Dr. Carnes used to say this, I always adapted it. Um, he said, it's the people who don't follow the plans that were made that relapse. He said, when you're in treatment, we are very clear with you. Do this, do that, don't do this, and don't do that. We're pretty good. What do they say? Those who are willing to follow this simple plan, it's a very simple plan. The people who fall on their face and say, well, I don't really want to do this twice a week. I'm just going to go once a week. Or, they didn't understand my life really, but now I understand I'm going to do it differently. We know you. We give you direction. If you don't take it, you're going to end up hurting the person you care about. And this person, by the way, is justifying, rationalizing. This is person who's a live wire addict who is not living in recovery. And if they were going to meetings and if they were following those steps that we just talked about, they would have to look at themselves and say, oh, this isn't okay. I get it. By the way, the more meetings this person goes to, the harder it will be for them to lie to themselves. Um, and I hope that you have a source of support because this is gaslighting. This is it. I don't know what you're talking about. It's not a problem, or it's a problem. And I think you need to trust yourself, and find how you can take care of yourself and bring yourself to peace and support when you're living with someone who honestly doesn't give a shit at the moment. Why do you go to treatment if he's not going to do the things the rest of him? I mean, why bother? Save your money and go act out and hire expensive sex workers. Why come to us and then not do the very things that we're encouraging you to do? So, Tammy, thoughts?
Oh, lots. So first of all, I hate when people wait. Like we get so many people that can't come to treatment. They can't afford it. So he has had the luxury of coming to treatment, getting the best help on the planet, and he's choosing to do this. I want to move. I don't want to change my sobriety date. I want to keep acting out. So I'm going to just move things around.
Right.
And the boredom is whatever form of addiction you have, boredom is our enemy. And Dr. Rob talked about service work, like he said that earlier.
Right.
Guess what? He's retired. He has the opportunity. Like there are people that are retired, and I go to some of the meetings, like I go to the noon meeting, and there are people that are retired and they're there every single day. And I keep thinking their wife is probably happy that they're here. These tend to be men. But like good. Go to a meeting every day. Go to two meetings a day. If you're sitting in a meeting, you're not bored and looking at YouTube, which leads to the problematic thing. So he had a really good aftercare plan, and I am sure that he has not been following any of that. And so, I put the boundaries work group in. It started last week. You could still join. This is about, like, okay, you're not choosing to do that. So I'm going to be over here taking care of me. I mean, he's watching meaningless YouTube rather than choosing to connect with people in a real and meaningful way. So that's really telling about him. This is not about you. It's sad for you. But this is not about you. This is someone who has been given all of the tools, and they're just going to leave them sitting on the ground and go, yeah, I'm going to just go watch YouTube. So it's so sad, really sad, but take care of you in all of this. And I mean, guess what? There's alumni meetings twice a week, with the Seeking Integrity guys. Like if he was talking, it's
We
not
do
just,
alumni. I
yeah,
go.
exactly. And it's with staff. This is not just, peers. Like there's so many opportunities for him to get off his ass, pardon my language, but get off his ass and do recovery work instead of sitting there on his ass looking at YouTube videos.
I want to add some things. I want to
Please.
read your language. He's retired and has a habit of scrolling. No, he doesn't have a habit. He chooses to scroll. This is his choice. I had a habit of smoking for a long time, and boy,
Mhm.
that was a tough one. But I chose and fought that freaking nicotine until I stopped. And that's because it was a habit, but I chose to live differently because for a lot of reasons it wasn't working for me. There's another thing in here that you said that I really wanted. By the way, red circle for you folks is things that are absolutely not acceptable. That ever, like you said, the therapist, the treatment center, and all of that. There was more thing. Let me think about what it says. Um,
He wants to
yeah,
move it to yellow circle
yeah,
because
no,
he
I
was
got
people
that.
pleasing. Okay.
Um, oh, I want to say something about the 12 steps.
Hmm.
So one of the things they do with people who are seriously self-hating and believe their worthlessness because of their acting out in some, not necessarily treatment centers, but long-term kind of work, is they make them help other people. They say part of your responsibility in your healing, whatever that is you've got to, if they're not into older people, you got to help seniors. If you're not into kids, I mean, into turn on by, go work with kids at church and whatever that is. And why do they do that? Because helping other people makes me feel good. We say recovery is selfish, and in that way it is. You can sit around and watch YouTube, or you can say, I'm going to do something for other people because I have this time. And you know what? That actually made me feel good. And those are the little pieces of feeling good that a healthy life is lived on. Addicts go with, woo, this is great. Oh, this is terrible. I want you to feel a little bit good every day. And the best way I can feel good, and I get to feel good every day, is by helping other people.
Okay, the next one is I am the betrayer. 4 years since formal disclosure, escaped abusive situations as a child by isolating. Now being isolated is very triggering to me. When in conflict with spouse, she withdraws, stonewalls. Very triggering for me. I know she is just trying to find safety, which I want for her, but this is tough for me. Usually I can manage, but sometimes I get pushy trying to get her to engage with me. Makes things worse. How can I help to change this stance? That's a great question.
Well, I think uh, it seems to me you only have one thing to lean on, and it's her. And if she moves out of the way, you fall down, or you're disappointed, you want to go act out. I think this is one of the reasons, back to 12 step, why it's so important to build social relationships. If my spouse is acting out by withdrawing and not talking to me for 3 days, I could sit and I want to act out. This is miserable. It reminds me of my child. Or I could say, you know what? When this happens, I'm going to make this a schedule, a plan. When this happens, I can't fix it. It's what she needs to take care of herself. I hope it helps her. And so when that happens, I'm going to go to a meeting. I'm going to call my sponsor. I'm going to reach out to my therapist rather than I'm going to leave myself feeling this misery. What do I do with my misery? The answer, and I don't blame you for feeling miserable. What are you going to do about it? She can do whatever she wants, but you're responsible for what you do with it. And if you want to sit in unhappiness and want to act out, that part is your choice. If you want to be active in a community of people who are healing and have people to reach out to, that is also your choice. So how it leaves you feeling is less important. I'm sorry you feel that way. There are lots of things that make me miserable, trust me. But what I choose to do with them is what matters. Um, Rather than sitting around and feeling miserable, I might go do something that's good for me and still feel miserable, but at least I'm not alone in my misery. And you know what? After a little while, I might feel differently. But but recovery is not about being able to now completely lean on my spouse and have them take responsibility for my life or my emotional life. That's a way to continue acting out. So, thoughts?
I love your answer, and yes, like have the emergency kit. You know this is going to happen. Like this has happened. This is also one of those, having a couples therapist to work through this, because like those are patterns, and you can
Mhm.
have a conversation of, like when you, and you don't have to call it stonewalling, when you withdraw, I feel this, and my natural inclination is I want to get pushy, meaning you want to, chase her and go, no, wait, 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 wait. You know, like there's wait, when we get in conflict, I'm gonna take a time out. I'm gonna say, I'm not abandoning you. I'm going to go do some regulation. I'll be back in 20 minutes. I mean, there's just things you can do that will set you guys up, and then check back in 20 minutes. Debbie McCrae does a great job of talking about, timeouts and healthy boundaries, and, rather than just stonewalling and stopping. And I get where she's coming from on that. And I also understand that that's an unhealthy dynamic. I call this the negative two step. You do this and I do this. You do this and I do this. And it, like you said, it just makes everything worse. You can change the choreography by saying, like, can we have a discussion of when this happens again, that we will have a plan so that she can go be safe, and I can take care of myself, and I can call my sponsor. I can go to a meeting, whatever, I'm going to do something that's going to regulate me, and know what those are. Because when you're dysregulated, it's hard to.
Right.
So have a little emergency kit. These are the top 6 things that I'm going to do that will help me get regulated, and go down the list until you get one that's working for you. So, but
Two more things, and
okay.
this is If
Mhm.
someone tells you to leave them alone, leave them alone.
Leave them alone.
If someone says
Yeah.
I want space, even if they're running from an important thing you should be talking about, let them run. We can't control other people no matter how much I love her. I don't want her to run away. We can work on this. Great. It's her choice to come forward and do that. There's nothing you could say with an addict. There's nothing you can do. She has to want to say, I don't want to withdraw anymore. But meanwhile, I want to say to everybody, what are the number two? The two things that addicts are most likely to act out over. Two things are addicts most likely to act out over. One is travel, because it's so we're away, no one will know where I am, and I can do what I want. And the other thing is unstructured time alone. So I'm sitting by myself, and it's a Saturday, and everybody's out, and I got the whole. Trust me, all of us. It's something about our challenge, and maybe as addicts alone, addicts, all of us, it's hard to be alone sometimes. This is the challenge of recovery, is coming to peace with yourself. But I know, having grown up alone, that when I am alone, my anxiety comes up, and I don't even know it. I just start thinking about, and I get a little, I want to fill in that. um, what I do when I know I'm going to be alone is, someone's going away, I have a plan for what I'm going to do that weekend. Um, when I know I run into this conflict, like Tammy says, I have a plan for what what's going to happen. Have a plan for when it does, and leave her alone.
Okay, next one. Essay in recovery, 18 months since DJ. I'm in recovery, 16 months sober, and spouse in her betrayal trauma healing process. My betrayed partner and I have not yet had formal therapeutic disclosure, but are working towards it. In February of 26 with our CSAT, APSAT financial issues from a co-addiction and job loss helped delay the process. We decided that if there were questions that were going to be answered on the formal therapeutic disclosure, to hold off on answering them, even if I asked, unless if asked, unless asked numerous times, where I am then answer honestly. In time frames like these, some of these answers have triggered my spouse, or if she's gone Sherlocking into my sobriety and found years of old emails related to acting out. How do we navigate this triggering while still maintaining honesty and forthrightness and plan formal therapeutic disclosure? There was definitely been relational healing in my perspective, but these do ob- obviously set them back. I do really wish I could have completed my part sooner.
I mean, why do you think she keeps going through things? Why do you think she's wanting more information? Why do you think she is not waiting for the disclosure? What do you think?
Well, she hasn't had clarity on I read the financial issues, but I was just like 18 months, since she's had discovery, you know, uh, and often partners are waiting for that to see if there's more, to wonder how bad it is. Like that is really a tough space for partners to be in, of wondering and then Sherlocking. Yeah, I like absolutely. And like a partner can not want to get more dysregulated, and it's almost impossible to keep them from going and snooping.
Right,
Like I will talk to them and go, did you feel better afterwards? No. And
right.
they'll do it again. And like I am not, this is not shaming, blaming, judgment. This is just the reality of the brain is going like, no, you need to know, you need to know, you need to know, so to me, I mean, that's 4 months away. If there's a possibility of moving this up sooner, I would so encourage you to do so, because that's that's almost 2 years of waiting, for something. So I like painful.
Yeah, I mean, there is a reality here, which is 18 months is a very long time to wait. And I personally, in the work that I do, and I know that therapists have different realities about this, but in general, I would prefer, well, let me say this. I think it's really important the spouse has a date, and the date not be 5 years from now. It has to be a reasonable period of time. I do think, though, that, she wants to feel better. And she wants to know everything and if she thinks, as every partner does, well, if I just know this, I'll feel better. If I'm worried about this, I need to go look at that. And that's a very hard thing to not do when you really don't know what's happening or not. So my suggestion to you is show her everything that's in there from the past, that I mean, anything that's in the phone, and say, yes, look at this. Yes, look at this. That was 5 years. In other words, let her do whatever she wants to do. Let her look as often as she wants to. You can't stop that. So I would say, don't try. In fact, if you say don't look at that, or she's going to get more upset. I'm not saying go forward or and saying here's everything I've done. I'm saying if you need to look at my phone, go ahead. I can't stop you. If you have a question about when that happened, I'm glad to answer. But but you have to respect the challenges that she's in and that she may do this until there's some peace. I feel like there's something missing there, Tammy, but I don't have it because I wish I had an answer. That's I wish I could tell her it's going to be okay. I wish I could tell him you'll get this out. So I wish I could make it better. February is a very long time. Um, do you have any other thought? I mean, like I can't fix this, but I want to fix it. Do you have any
Well,
other thoughts?
no, I do too, because like even the just tell her, and I'm like my nightmare scenarios that I hear about all the time, because it's just what goes on is well, I just told her everything, and so because she wanted to know, and I get that her brain wants to know, and she does not perceive that anything is safe until she knows. Unfortunately, the do-it-yourself disclosures, like they just lead to not good scenarios. Like everybody thinks it's going to be better after that, and they don't. Dr. Rob does a peer case consultation group on Tuesdays for professionals who are trained in this. Guess what the number one topic is among the professionals? Disclosure, formal therapeutic disclosure, because even among trained professionals, this is challenging work. So thinking that you can do it on your own and get through it and make it all better is not going to happen. I mean, I just don't know anybody that has successfully had that happen. So it's really hard, and I can't even imagine how much pain your spouse is in having to continue to wait. No, just wait, just wait, just wait. So again, my encouragement is working with your professionals. Is there a way to move that date up sooner, like soon? If you haven't done all of your work, like that's, because you said something about, I wish I could have completed my part sooner. And I'm like, if you don't have your disclosure ready to go by now, after all of this time, jump on that, get that going, get that finished. This is a process. Partners also mistaken that once we have formal therapeutic disclosure, then it's all going to be great. And it isn't. That's just one part of the journey. It's just another component. This is a process. It sets a foundation for healing, but it isn't the healing. Then, and there's lots of partners that heal regardless of that, because some of them never get it. So thank goodness, there's a means of healing regardless of whether you had it. But that's a very disruptive, dysregulated state for your spouse to be in, and sooner would be, much better. I would also, because you have a CSAT and ABSATs. What else are you doing? Because if she's snooping, I'm wondering if she's not feeling like things are going better. If she was seeing you really doing the work, 12 step are free. Our drop-in groups are free. You're here. This is free. So the more you're leaning into that, at 16 months, she should be seeing that you're changing, that you're working on being congruent, instead of the scattered compartmentalization. So lean into all the free stuff, hit it hard, finish your disclosure if you haven't. So you've got the document, and if there's a way that you can get it done sooner, I beg you to do that for her sake.
And I have a concrete suggestion. It's the one I've been searching
Mhm.
for. Go to your therapist and say, I really can't afford right now to pay your fee. Is there any way that I could get a reduced fee for a period of time while I'm working on this? I can't tell you. It's very unusual when I was doing outpatient therapy. It would be very unusual for me to say no. When I saw people working hard and I saw them having some need, I would absolutely say, you know what, for this period of time, until you have the resources, or if we have to stop later, I will give you a reduction in my fee. I will make this affordable to you. Now you still have to pay something because we feel like you have to have some skin in the game. But I want you to know that it is not that you certainly have permission to go to a therapist and say, I so appreciate your work, but right now I can't afford, but I really need to get through this. Would you help me do it at a reduced fee? And that may be difficult or uncomfortable, but it's not as difficult as your wife feels sitting and waiting for all of this. And I've had people approach me many times. Unless they weren't really doing the work, I always said yes.
Yes, and there are payment plans, and I mean, there's lots of different ways. I do know people can do sliding scale, etc. So,
Mhm.
but yes, again, you have to have some skin in the game, for this as well. So, okay. So the next question is, I'm looking for clarity. I have seeked behaviors that allow me to be used by other men. I would meet up with anyone who would treat me in a subway. My wife and I had disclosure, and I made promises. I would speak clearly and genuinely, feel good about what I am saying to my wife, then end up doing what I promised I wouldn't. My wife now is more scared for me and thinks I am sick in the head. Actually says it's just weird now. I'm choosing losing my wife, daughter, and house. I am dissociated.
Well, I don't know about the last part because
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of people, to be dissociated is something that you really have a professional determine. To dissociate means to space out, to disappear, to all kinds of things that a professional can help with. I do understand the idea that if I want to act out and I say I'm not going to, and then I feel drawn to it, I feel like I'm not even there when I do it. Um, this is a complicated question because there's a lot of things in here. Um, there are things that I would not pathologize, that I would say, well, let me say this. Yeah, let me think it this way. Um, there are things that people do that they're just attracted to and they enjoy. And whether it's works for you or not, whether it works into your life or not, it's something that, so if you want to be with men and you want to be dominated, I'm not going to tell you that's right or wrong. That's something you feel and want. What I am going to be concerned about is how what choices you make. So, if it's okay with your wife that you do this, okay with me. If she says, I cannot tolerate this and I can't live with this, I don't know whether this is an addiction or not. We have something called an arousal template we work with, which is what turns you on. And I can tell you, as a homosexual man, you can show me all the boobs you want, but I'm not interested because I'm a homosexual man. It may well be that this is your thing and this is what turns you on. And this is maybe the only thing that turns you on. You're going to have to find a way to figure that out, negotiate it. And maybe it's not addiction. There are people I work with who are really turned on by men and they want to. I'm giving an example. Their men are really turned on by men and they're really into men, but they're married and they love their spouse. And they call their fact that they are turned on by men addiction. And they say, well, if I just didn't have this desire to be with men, this addictive desire, then things would be okay. Well, that's not going to change. That's what turns this person on, and that's what turns you on. And it may well be that this is who you are, and that you're naming what you do as addiction because you want it to go away. It doesn't necessarily, just because you don't like how you act sexually and you don't like how you feel, doesn't mean that it's an addiction. When it is addiction is lying, manipulation, making promises you can't keep. To me, Tammy, this is something that I would see a sexologist for. I think you need more evaluation and insight. I know that and I want you all to hear, I'm not giving someone permission to do something that is not discussed or agreed upon with their spouse. I'm not saying to someone, well, just do it because it turns you on. What I am saying is you have to be honest. You have to tell yourself the truth. You need more evaluation. Write to Tammy, in case if any of you have questions, write to Tammy, Tami, see, I said this now for you, Tami at seekingintegrity.com. There's some sexologists I wouldn't see because they're just going to say whatever you want to do is fine. There are other sexologists that are going to take into account, and I'm one, I have a PhD in sex. Isn't that great? You got to laugh at that.
Mhm.
But in any case, those who are aware of addiction and are sexologists, and I know quite a few, will understand and be able to differentiate what is this thing that you do that really turns you on, and it's part of what turns you on, and what is this thing that is addictive and repetitive, that you can manage in some way uh, and stop living that way. I don't know, but just because you want a certain kind of life, and just because you think that is the life that you should be living, or even if your spouse says this is the life I want us to live, it may not be who you are. And I can't determine in that, but I do think more professional evaluation with someone who really knows what they're talking about can help you pull these pieces apart. And TAMI at Seeking Integrity, the reason I say that is we make a ton of referrals. And we truly know on the field, having done this so long, who is a good therapist and who's a well-meaning therapist, but isn't necessarily good at what they do. And if you give us a right, we can find somebody to help you sort this out, if you will. We
But there's
should,
one more.
yeah,
No,
let's do it.
okay, yeah,
Let's
yeah.
jump
Okay.
on it.
You mentioned travel and boredom, and you did. What about the cheater that acts out on business trips, but alongside friends, meaning a group that
Mm.
would go out to strip clubs or massage parlors together?
Well, that's easy. Stop going. You
Hmm.
know, if you're an alcoholic and, you know, and you really struggling with drinking when you're on the road or, you know, or sorry, if you're really, Cami, you're going to carry this metaphor out. Alcoholics don't go to bars in the beginning. They might go for a drink with a friend years down the road, and they'll sit there and drink a Coke. But in the beginning, you or Pepsi, just want to not feature. But I'm being silly. But the bottom line is, um, those aren't people I can spend time with. You know, and I know they say this in all the 12-step programs. There may be people that you care about that you have to let go of. There may be people that you have fun with that you have to let go of. I remember some stories about men who would go golfing and they would brag in their stories about, you know, on the golf course about, well, you can't play golf with those people anymore. So there has to be a choice, which is, do I want to live this way, which I know now is going to lead to that? Or do I want to find a way of living that doesn't support my addiction? And I've seen people, and I give up jobs, move to other places, you know, make all kinds of choices because their commitment to change meant that whatever they had to do, they did. So I don't know if as a partner, you're thinking there's a partner or an addict, Tammy. I'm thinking it's a partner.
I think it's a partner. Yeah, yeah. I
Well,
mean,
my
a group
question
who
to
go.
you would
Yeah.
be, if you know this is going on, how are you taking care of yourself? In other words, my boundary might be, if you go on the road, I may not be here when you get back. If you go on the road, you know, what are you doing to make me as a partner feel safe? And if there, and I don't know, sometimes people need to travel for work. Okay, how can be accountable? I might call someone I'm working with and a sponsor, a therapist, and say, you know what, I'm going on the road. I'm going to call you in the middle of the day. I'm going to call you in the evening. If I get online, I'm going to call you. We can find ways to be accountable, but putting ourselves, I got to say, putting myself in this situation, going to a bar or a drinking club when I am 3 months sober, I'm just asking for it. You know, I'm just saying, hey, come on, bring it on. And or if you say this is part of business, then he's in the wrong business. So Tammy, we
Oh,
said, what do we,
no, I don't think it was an addiction. He no longer does this. So, well, and that's good. I mean, if
well, but
that's
let's go back to the one that we're being asked just about
no, it is. I
travel
don't
and
think.
boredom.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I don't. I think. Well, I guess I don't know,
Okay,
but yeah,
well, here's my
that's
comment
yeah.
about, I didn't realize that we're connected. So if I
I don't
could,
know if they
don't,
are. I don't know if they are.
okay,
So let's yeah.
well, when
But
someone,
well, I
go
want
ahead.
to say this person says a cheater. So if it's
Okay.
just like everybody's doing it, everybody's in Vegas, whatever, not justifying that. That's different, yes, and not okay on any level. It's still cheating, So again, out of the doghouse work group for that person could be helpful, but at the end of the day, like that's like just because everybody's doing it doesn't make it okay. And honestly, I was thinking that would not be a business I would want to do business with. Like to me, that
Oh,
would like
live in a
no,
man's world.
seriously. I
Every
guess, but
financial
like
firm,
really, oh
oh
wow,
my God,
okay, okay, well,
sorry.
not
That's why there
okay,
are so
not
many strip
okay.
clubs.
I
I'm not,
guess so. Not okay. But yeah, if it wasn't in an agreement for your relationship, then
right.
that ultimately is then it's not okay. If you go, hey, boys will be boys, completely different. It is all about if it's oh
Yeah, thanks, Heather. Yeah, the
the
military is another.
military.
Well, actually, the
Oh my
military
gosh,
often
yeah.
gets permission. You know, we're on leave, and here you guys, this is the part of
Yeah,
town.
that's true.
Uh, but in any case, the one thing that I see really here is that it makes you feel really frightened and really you're very uncomfortable with it. You're kind of saying, is this okay? Or is this just what people do? It doesn't matter if it's okay for them or it's what people do. What matters is if you're in a relationship, what kind of respect and dignity are you getting? Um, and, you know, going off and doing this when I'm a cheater and I already know it and I know how you feel about it, it's not just addiction or not, it's incredibly disrespectful to you. And what do you do with being disrespected for yourself? Um, well, thank you all. Good to see you.
Thank
Tamara, we're going
you.
to chat
Thanks,
in the
Dr. Rob.
morning, I think.
Yes, yeah,
So I
see you.
look forward
Well,
to that.
yeah. All right.
Bye,
Sounds
folks.
good.
Glad you were here.
Bye.